We know the cost of living at the moment can often result in people looking for ways to make a bit of extra money. Some people try and do it the easy way and start investing as well. It's not a bad thing at all, but do you know about a Ponzi scheme? Do you know actually how it works? Can you even identify one? And if you were, what would you do with that information before you give them all your money? Personal finance journalist Maya Fisher-French joining us this morning. And Maya, we are talking Ponzi schemes, and it's staggering, albeit slightly believable, how many people find themselves in trouble. And by the time they realize they're in trouble, it's too late.
Absolutely. And, this is obviously on the back of this very large Ponzi scheme that sort of blew up 2 weeks ago, which I've been investigating. And, it's often, there's two kind of Ponzi schemes that I come across. The first is one that's sort of set up in the beginning as a Ponzi scheme. These are guys who've crooked people right from the beginning. That's how it plays out. But my sense with this one is that it actually started out as a legitimate investment. And what we know from court records is that the chap Craig Warrener, who was running it, ran into financial difficulty in the 2009 crash and didn't want to admit the losses. And this is actually something we come across quite often. It's somebody, a friend, trades some money for other friends. They build up a bit of a fund. Other people add money in, and then it goes pear-shaped, and they're too scared to admit this. And that's when the Ponzi scheme takes over, because now they're getting in more money and they think, well, I'll get in more investors, I'll trade my way out of this, I'll pay existing investors from new investors. And I think this is sometimes, so it's not always start off as a Ponzi scheme, it sometimes starts off as a legitimate investment that goes wrong.
And I suppose this is the problem, because you then start seeing these people, they get statements because you think it's an investment. You get your monthly statements, that the money you're making, the interest you're getting, etc., etc. But that money comes in, as you say, from other investors because they've seen these fake statements. They're getting the money. They put more money in. And then what you have is a situation where Peter is being paid. Peter is paying Paul with somebody else's money. And so the rabbit hole, we go deeper down.
Absolutely. And I think, though, people do have to be a little bit more circumspect about the kind of statements they're getting. And I must say, in this particular case, my mom has a share portfolio, for example, that I look after for her. And when I get the statements, it's very clear. You can see every single trade. You can actually get the depth into it. This provided none of that. It was just kind of, here's a number. This is how much you've made. And there was no real understanding about how those trades actually occurred. So I think there are some warning signs if you are investing in something. And of course, if it's unregulated, that's obviously another warning sign. But sometimes people do. They start funds for family and friends and they're trading it. Ask to see the trades. That's probably the most important thing. If you can't drill down and see the actual trades and how that money is being made, that's where the little black box starts. That's where the Ponzi is sitting.
Yeah, the other as well, as I ask you as well, about how do you identify a Ponzi scheme? Because now we don't want to scare everybody, because you always talk about be responsible, invest, put money away for that rainy day, think long term, etc., etc. But something like this can scare people away from doing that, because a Ponzi scheme comes across in the beginning as a legitimate investment vehicle. But how do we know what a Ponzi scheme is? I suppose one indicator could be if they're offering you 10% above what any other bank or investment company is doing. That could be a bit of a red flag.
Look, the easiest Ponzi's or the pyramid schemes to identify are those who sort of offering you 20% a month. Those are such red flags. If you fall for that, sorry, but, those are seriously red flags. But this one was very smart, because what he said is he kind of constantly gave returns of around 14% a year. Now, you must remember when I'm trying to put the pieces together, but I think his original investment fund started in around sort of the early 2000s. Now, from 2004 to 2008, we had a bull market. So the markets were doing really, really well, and people got very used to getting the kind of returns of 13-14% a year because it was a bull market. So people kind of thought, well, that makes sense that he can deliver that. But of course, since 2008, things have been very, very different. But people kind of thought, well, before we've had 13-14% a year, so it must be okay. But it was almost the consistency of it, the fact that he was able to deliver this constantly high returns when all your friends around you are saying, gee, my investments aren't doing very well. And you're sitting there smug thinking, well, mine are doing great. I've found the perfect guy. That's probably the flag, is when everybody else is losing money and you're not, you should start asking. And I almost wanted to put a tweet out this week to say, guys, if your investments have done really badly this year, at least you know you're not in a Ponzi.
What a terrible thing to have to say to someone. But yeah, you're not wrong at all. But I suppose the issue, apart from identifying it yourself, is I almost want to imagine, probably incorrectly, that if you now have a financial advisor, or you thinking of investing, because we all listen to Maya Fisher-French when she shouts at us about being responsible with our money and invest, if you get a financial advisor, surely that's the person you can trust. There's no chance you're going to get involved in a Ponzi scheme, or is that an ignorant view?
This is probably, for me, the angle I'm going to be focusing on a lot is the role of the financial advisor in all of this, because a lot of people trusted their financial advisor, and there were big financial advisory firms who were putting people's money in this. And there has to be a question asked. You know, when I saw the mandate of this fund was anything but low risk. This isn't a very high risk, even if it was not a Ponzi. Even if it was legitimate, it was a high risk. It was 8 shares. This guy was trading 8 shares and actively trading them. Now, that does not fall under any prudential guidelines in terms of low risk. So you just from that, just if you were a financial advisor and you read that mandate, you should know that this was a high risk fund, that if you were going to recommend it to a client, you would recommend a small percentage of their portfolio. So I think there's a lot of questions that have to be placed at the feet of advisors. And I think it also appears to me that advisors were used aggressively to sell this. And I've spoken to a lot of investors. I've spoken to people who in the know who said it was a little bit of a club. He created this club of financial advisors, and was almost that, I don't know if you watched the Bernie Madoff series on Netflix, but it was that special club. You're part of a club. You're part of this. And that's how he played it. And that's how the advisors felt. They felt that they were able to give their clients something no one else had, no other advisors had, and it created this little club. And there's going to be a lot of questions asked, and I think there's going to be legal implications as well.
Yep, absolutely, there is. Quite right. As well, so it's not just scare you away from investing. I think the idea is just to make you more aware of how quickly it can happen, and to be a lot more alert as well. Because in the end, you can have a financial advisor, but in the end, it's your money, and you need to be the one responsible for it. Maya, always good to talk to you. Good advice, as always. Maya Fisher-French, and I suppose that just a very quick takeaway from Maya there is, when it comes to any kind of investing, when it seems too good to be true, it probably is. That's, I suppose, the most basic advice we can give you.